Are you looking to sharpen your budgeting skills? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Budget Couple Podcast, where we talk about life, family, and how to afford it. And now, the Budget Couple themselves, Nate and Danielle.
Welcome to the Budget Couple Podcast. I'm Nate.
And I'm Danielle.
And this week, we're going to talk about our home equity loan and how we move forward with it. We finally decided to pull the trigger and kind of go with it and redo our master bathroom and our kitchen. But before we get into all that, we'd really like to encourage you to leave a review for our podcast wherever you listen to it. It really helps grow the show and helps us reach more people, which we'd really like to help out. So with that said, let's dive into today's show.
We'll keep this short and sweet for you guys, but we did want to give you an update on our home equity loan and what we decided to go with. We actually have picked our contracting companies and now are just awaiting the money because we signed everything today.
Yeah, like 3 hours ago today.
Yeah. So, and I'm a little, it's scary for me. I think if you've been listening for a little while, I'm on the cheap side. So it is tough, but let's get into the numbers just to remind everyone. It's a $30,000 loan. We were really excited that our house got approved for much higher than what we expected. And so we were able to go a little bit higher on that loan just as a cushion. And we got a 3.74 interest rate, which is actually pretty good when you look at the home equity loans that are out there right now. So
it's an absolute killer loan rate for pretty much everything. I think it beats pretty much everything by at least a percentage or two, if not better. It's a great rate.
So we were happy about that. It's a 5-year term, and the monthly payments, if we just paid the minimum amount, would be $548.98.
So our new loan is classified as a secondary mortgage. We had to call our insurance company, get a new lien holder put onto the insurance, so in case, God forbid, anything happens, they get their money back before we get our money back. So we have that as a basic setup to get started here. Now, before we really dive into the kind of nuts and bolts of this stuff, I wanted to touch on budget ratios. We talked about this all the way back in episode 24, and for those longtime listeners, I believe it was episode 11 where we talked about budget ratios as well. Now, these are things that we generally try to live within so that we know we can afford what we're doing. And one of the first things we did before we decided to go and take a loan out was see that the loan amount actually fits within our budget ratio. So as Danielle said, we have basically $550 roughly that is going to be our monthly payment for this secondary mortgage. Now, our primary mortgage, we pay $1,700 a month on. So when you combine those up, that's $2,250 a month as our mortgage. Now, luckily for us, that equates to 24% of our monthly income, and that's take home. That's not before taxes. That's what we actually get into our bank account. So this perfectly fits within our budget ratio. We try to keep everything within a quarter to maybe up to a third, but the lower you can go, the more affordable everything gets and the more you can do with your money. So in this case, it totally fits within what we're doing, and we're plenty happy with that.
And I want to just add to what Nate was saying. We do have about a $2,000 a month on average cushion in our budget. So once we take everything out, we've paid everything, we have about a $2,000 cushion. And so that really made me feel a little more comfortable taking a loan out. If we didn't have that, say our cushion was only like $500 or something, then I wouldn't have felt nearly as comfortable with this. And this goes right back to what we're saying with the ratios. Because it's only 24% of our take home pay, we have that cushion. And we were more comfortable with going forward with a loan for this.
And also, if one of us, God forbid, loses our jobs, we can still afford this loan. The ratios go way out of whack at that point, but we should be able to make all of our monthly bills with this intact. And especially because we have an emergency fund set up, we'll be comfortable in that world as well. But now let's dive into the interest rate part of this, because a lot of times payments get very, very confusing for what you're actually paying versus what your actual interest rate is. And we're going to touch on that here in just a sec. So we said at the beginning we had a 3.74% interest rate. Now that is an annual interest rate. If I go through and just do the straight math on this, it comes out to basically be an extra $1,122. And all I did to do that number is I multiplied $30,000 by 0.0374, which is the math way of doing that. That gives me 1,122. And that number there is what I would be paying in interest in a perfect world. But that's not how banks calculate their interest rates. They're based off monthly payments, and it's also based off of what's called an amortization schedule, which basically you go through and recalculate what the payment is each month versus what's going into interest and what's going into principal. Principal is just what is actually being paid on the loan amount, and interest is being what's being paid to the bank as their profit, for lack of a better term. So when we take the roughly $550 a month and multiply that times 60, we come out just short of $32,938.80. So that means when we go through what we actually pay in interest in the real world, not in fantasy land, but in actual real world, is almost $3,000. And that means we have an interest rate of almost 10% in actual world. So over that 5 years, we're really paying much, much closer to 10% interest for the life of that loan than the 3.75 that we were quoted. Again, this is because the 3.74 or 3.75, whatever it happens to be, that interest rate is an annual interest rate, and it's only put in for that 1 year, basically. After that, the compounding interest and all these other things kind of roll in and starts causing problems for the math if you like clean, simple math.
This gives you all the more reason to try and pay that loan off early. And we've talked a lot about that over our episodes, where we try and pay everything off as quickly as we can. We put extra on each month rather than just the minimum payment. I think the only thing we're paying a minimum payment on at this point is our car, because we have a 0% interest rate.
Right. So if we're putting extra money on it, that means that's money we're not putting on something that's gathering interest. So we're theoretically losing money in that situation. Not probably a whole lot, but having the car paid off is less important to us right now than lowering the house payment, or in this case now, lowering this second mortgage payment.
Exactly. So what we looked at was what would it do to the length of our loan, and what would it do to our actual payment, or full payment, if you were to put extra on the loan each month, which is what we plan to do anyway, depending on our budget constraints. So breaking it down here, if you have an extra $100 on that loan each month, so let's say, our minimum is $550, but let's say we put an extra 100 on that. So we're paying $650 for the length of the loan. So that would save you 10 months on the length of the loan. So it would reduce that 5 years by 10 months and save you about $500 overall.
And that's interest payments that you're not making, essentially. So that $500 is coming out of money that you'd save on interest payments. And any of the money that you save based off paying things early is purely done on interest. So especially with your house, you can save massive amounts of money. This loan amount that we're going to give a couple more examples for here, it's $30,000, which is a lot of money, but it's nothing compared to the price of a house. So just think of what these do when you amplify it to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you can really save some serious cash.
Going on to an extra 200. So let's say you're able to put 750 on this. You lop off a year and a half of your, just about a year and a half, should I say, of your length of your loan, and you save around $844. Decent amount. It's going up. If you do 300 extra on it, then you lop off a year and 10 months and save $1,100. So you can see it's going up pretty quick. An extra $400. So this is a lot. This is $950. So it is a bit more. You're almost doubling at this point, the loan amount. You would save 2 years and 2 months. So you'd be paying the loan off in about 3 years, and you would save yourself $1,300. Finally, if you put an extra $500 on it, so here you're very close to doubling. You're paying over $1,000 a month. If you're able to do that, though, you cut it in half. So you're down to 2 years and 5 months, and you're able to save $1,468.
Now, if you remember the difference between the interest rate that you quoted if you just do the straight multiplication versus the actual interest rate, we're paying $1,800 over what the actual interest rate is compared to just the basic math. Now, when we minus those out, we only really are paying about an extra $300 to $400 over the original quote if you just do the straight math of 30,000 times 0.0374. So paying off your loan early allows you to cash in on the lower interest rate, but also getting a more realistic, or should I say, actual interest rate compared to what you could do from basic math.
And just to bring this all together here, like I said at the beginning, this is hard for me because I don't like taking out loans. I don't like being in debt. And $30,000 just makes me squirm. But at the same time, we had been considering over the last several months potentially going to a larger, more expensive house. And in that case, we probably would have been spending at least $100,000 more over our current mortgage. And on top of that, we'd also be getting a worse interest rate because interest rates are not as good right now.
The Fed actually announced yesterday that they're hiking them and they plan to do it probably 2 more times this year.
So not a good time for us to go and buy a more expensive house. Instead, we decided that we'd like to pay our house off sooner, stay here, make it work, at least until our son graduates and we retire and go somewhere cheaper. But that's in and of itself saving us quite a bit of money. So we feel a little less bad, I guess, for doing some upgrades on our house, making it what we want, increasing the value a bit. And if it does cost us that $30,000 or what will end up being hopefully around $31,000, $32,000, then we're okay with it. It's better than us spending a heck of a lot more to get a bigger house.
Right. Because if we're going to be spending an extra $100,000 and then we're going to be paying 1%, maybe 2% more interest, that this $30,000 is significantly less expensive in comparison to that. Not just including the increase of the price house, because we can do that based off the monthly payment. We'd be able to afford the bigger house, no problem there. But the money that we'd be paying in interest is an absolute killer. Whereas in this, we have a very similar interest rate. This is actually a lower interest rate than what our house is. And it allows us to do a little bit more things with our money because we can pay it off and we know we can pay it off, and we'll work hard to make sure that we do pay it off. So again, being able to put a little bit of extra money on your loan each month really helps you reduce the length of that loan. $100 extra in our example is going to knock off a whole year and then some off the loan term, which allows you to take that money and do something else with it. Allowing you a little bit more freedom and getting you out of debt quicker, which is, I think, what we're all about, is getting out of debt quickly, even though we seem to keep going into debt to do that. But that's okay. And one final note with the house is, I think one of the other deciding factors for this was that since we're going to be living here, we want to make it what we like to have. We don't want to fix up the kitchen when it's time to sell and never get to enjoy it. We want to be able to enjoy our house now, and this is going to help us do that and be much more comfortable in the house for a longer period of time.
I think that's it. We will wrap things up, and we'll give you guys links to the calculators we use to get these amounts on the show notes. So look for that.
Yeah, you can always go in. I'll have the links for the calculators, for amortization schedules, and you can put your own numbers and just play with things to see what makes sense, what doesn't, because it's always good to have more information to make a better decision. But that's going to wrap it up here. If you have any questions for us, please visit our website at budgetcouple.com, and show notes for this particular episode, along with links to those calculators, can be found at budgetcouple.com/episode 31. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Budget Couple Podcast with your hosts, Nate and Danielle. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit budgetcouple.com. Make sure to check out the next episode of the Budget Couple Podcast, where we'll talk more about life, family, and how to afford it. We'll catch you next time.